artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence?
Artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence is hard to work on something.
So, AI voices are kinda crazy right now. It was only a few years ago that text-to-speech and voice generation was still kinda
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
They were decent, but it wasn't really good enough to fool anybody into thinking that they were a real human voice. But now, holy fuck, this stuff is getting really good. Some of this stuff is pretty harmless and clearly made for fun, like the US president's playing Super Smash Bros. Melee.
Oh, what the hell, Brock? Why are we playing Four-Side?
What's wrong with Four-Side?
It's not viable in competitive play. You should have picked Final Destination.
Now, there's a bunch of different things that AI is doing right now that has people spooked, like AI-generated artwork, fully generated YouTube videos, and ChatGPT replacing people's jobs. But today, I'd like to focus on how AI voice generation is totally disrupting the music industry. Firstly, there are the copyright problems, which kind of begs the question, do we even own our own voices? And in the current copyright law in the US as it is, the answer seems to be no. Secondly, there are the social problems. Making somebody appear to say something that they haven't, whether or not it's in a song, can totally disrupt someone's entire life. And lastly, there are the moral or ethical problems, which is especially prevalent when you're talking about deceased artists like Juice WRLD or XXXTentacion. So yeah, AI voice generation is a sticky subject, so let's talk about it. I think the most common type of AI voice-generated music that's going on right now is where one artist is made to cover another artist's song. Some of these AI covers are actually pretty entertaining, like Sonic the Hedgehog covering Michael Jackson's Billie Jean, which is especially ironic considering the fact that Michael Jackson had composed music for Sonic 3. One of my personal favorites, though, has to be Mr. Krabs covering Billie Jean, and it's insane how close this sounds to the actual Mr. Krabs from SpongeBob.
I am the one.
This type of meme content seems to be pretty harmless because Sonic and Mr. Krabs are fictional characters and Content ID most likely is getting the money to the right people. But at the same time, Michael Jackson, because he's deceased, and his team never really cleared these tracks to be used for this purpose. More interestingly though, real people who have never sung a word in their life can be made to cover songs, and the results are mixed. For instance, one of the more amusing covers is Biden and Trump covering Ninjas in Paris by Jay-Z and Kanye, which sort of just speaks for itself.
Also, this shit crazy.
And to say this trend is getting out of hand is probably an understatement considering there are a fuck ton of AI covers all over YouTube and TikTok. And about 90% of these AI covers are of Kanye West because of course they are. You've got Kanye singing the soundtrack to Curious George, Kanye singing Boys a Liar Part 2, and even Kanye covering Taylor Swift's songs, which, yeah. Some of these covers are pretty bad quality or too robotic to fool anyone into thinking they're the real Kanye, but some of them are eerily close to matching his real voice. And the thing is, it's so fucking easy to make these AI covers. All you have to do is find a YouTube link to the song you want an artist to cover, paste it in the AI algorithm, select the artist you want to cover it, and just press one single button. This has caused mass confusion in the music industry with executives, labels, and artists panicking to try to figure out how to deal with the situation. But the most insane thing about these covers is that they're getting a fuckload of views on YouTube and TikTok, with some reaching millions of views, and the people who are listening seem to really love them. And I don't really blame them because some of these AI covers are insanely good, and without AI, they'd almost certainly never exist. Covers like Ariana Grande singing Passion Fruit and Controlla by Drake have millions of views on TikTok, and the situation on YouTube is pretty much the same. And herein lies the problem. All of those views translate into thousands or millions of dollars, and that money has to go somewhere, but the platforms in the music industry are struggling to figure that out. Do they straight up just DMCA all AI-generated content from their catalog, or do they claim the videos and try to recoup that money? And for that matter, how does the money even get split up in the first place? Obviously, the original instrumental is owned by a label or another artist, but the AI-generated vocals are a whole nother story. Should an artist who has their voice generated even get a cut? Or what about the creator of the cover or mashup? They technically did create something, even if it didn't require much effort. And even if you solve that problem, you still need to solve the issue of whether or not you need permission to generate someone's voice in the first place. The Taylor Swift and Kanye mashups, for instance, even if that generated money for Taylor Swift, I would probably guess she would not want her voice used in that way, considering the history between them. So AI covers are kinda weird, and nobody seems to know what to do about them, but I actually think there's an even harder problem to solve with AI-generated songs. And that problem is what to do with original songs that overlay another artist's vocals on top of them. This type of AI-generated content is a lot more interesting to me because it's much harder to determine the legality and the morality of it. Basically, a producer makes an original instrumental and has somebody write lyrics and sing over that beat. Then they feed this song into the AI generator and replace the original vocals with a new artist's vocals. And I've listened to some of these original AI-generated songs before from various different artists, and they're surprisingly good sometimes. One of the most popular artists to do this with is Juice WRLD because he has such a unique voice and a presence in the music industry even after he passed. Some of them are so good, in fact, I started playing back real Juice WRLD songs and then the AI-generated ones, and I couldn't really tell a difference. Just to show you what I mean, here's a real Juice WRLD song and then an AI-generated one.
I toss my pain with my wishes in a wishing well. I'm on all drugs, all types of the...
There are a ton of different producers participating in this trend, like Red Limits or Beats by Ads, and they're very talented producers who seem to be doing it for the right reasons because they're fans of the artists. But even though they have good intentions, I think the morality of it is still in a gray area at best, especially when you're talking about deceased artists, because there's no way to know whether or not they wanted their voice to be used in that way. On the copyright side of things, it's basically impossible to figure out who gets paid and what the split will be because the song is fully original, including instrumental, lyrics, and vocal melody, but the actual voice was not. While researching for this video, I actually read some Google Scholar papers and articles written by copyright lawyers about how this stuff works, which was boring as fuck, by the way, but I think it's important to understand. The current consensus seems to be that you cannot copyright a voice with the current laws, so there's really nothing stopping people from doing this. There is one benefit to the artists though, and that is that the people creating these AI-generated songs cannot pass it off as created by the actual artist, and they can't use their name commercially. It is still fairly murky, but it seems to be legally above board to create these AI-generated songs, but you must label it as such so that people don't confuse it with an actual song from the real artist. The even crazier thing about the current laws is that if a song is entirely AI-generated, that song can be protected under copyright law as works generated by a computer in circumstances such that there is no human author of the work. The fucked up thing about how these laws are written though is that there's no clear answer to whether or not the person who created the AI tool or the person who generated the song actually owns the copyright. So yeah, it's kind of a confusing mess and 100% something that we'll be dealing with for decades to come. And believe me, this type of stuff has gotten the attention of big names and labels in the music industry, like Drake responding to a cover of him on an Ice Spice song on his Instagram story. One of the biggest labels, Universal Music Group, recently sent out DMCA requests to large platforms like Spotify and TikTok because a TikTok user named Ghostwriter77 made a viral song using Drake and The Weeknd's voices called Hard on My Sleeve. The thing is, it's actually a pretty damn good song, which had a bunch of labels frantically trying to find a way to prevent AI vocal generating software from using their artists' voices. To put it bluntly, AI has music labels fucked up in a big way because it threatens their entire empire of billions of dollars worth of music. I am a lot more sympathetic to the artist side of things though, because they're the ones who stand to lose the most, and I don't blame people for being spooked by their creative jobs being devalued or possibly lost entirely. UMG even went so far as to send out a public statement to the technology industry at large that says platforms have a fundamental, legal, and ethical responsibility to prevent the misuse of their services in ways that harm artists. This entire controversy culminated in the US Copyright Office sending out an official statement in March of 2023 that said they would begin deciding on whether or not AI-generated content can be copyrighted on a case-by-case basis. So in the world of AI, it's kind of the Wild West right now, just like when the internet was becoming a thing in the 90s and everyone was trying to figure out what the fuck was even going on. I think it's something that average music listeners should learn about, which is why I'm making this video, since it affects more than just the executives and big artists in the industry. Tell me what you guys think about it in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next video.